Hey you guys, welcome back to the channel. And I am just doing an update because I just previously did a review for the Zebra F701 stainless steel pen. And though I still stick by the review I did, I had a chance to write a little bit more with the pen. And after you get used to it, as I had mentioned before in the previous video, that when you hold the pen in a manner where it's straight vertical and you write like that, um, and everyone's different the way they write. If I hold it by the tip and I write at an angle, which some people are more comfortable with writing like that, I feel that it feels a little bit scratchy at times, not as smooth. And I mentioned when you write it straight above like that, vertically, it does write a lot smoother. And especially if I hold it like this. Not everyone can hold a pen like this as opposed to like this, but sometimes I like to hold a pen like that, where I'm not really putting the tips of my fingers around the kind of like that, where I'm not putting the tips of the fingers around the the holding area. And when I was writing like that inside this little notebook a little moment ago, which obviously something like this has a lot more give versus say like a harder surface, um, it definitely feels like it writes better. But you also got to get used to it. It's a different style than say the Parker pens, and obviously a lot comes down to the refill that's in it as well, the refill cartridge. But the tip on this, I feel, is a bit more finer as well, um, when it compared to the Parkers. I don't know how well this is going to show up on camera. Probably won't show up all that well, but though they may not look that much of a difference, I feel that this writes a lot more sharper than the Parkers. Now, the Parkers definitely write a lot more smoother, and the tips actually feel like they're bigger. I'm gonna just show a little example here on paper. I don't know how well it can be seen. Sorry about the angle of the camera already set up like this, but so here, like I said, writing with the Zebra, it I feel like the lines are more fine. And after getting used to writing it in that way, I actually don't mind it. It's different because when you go back and forth between the Zebra and the Parker, it's definitely a different feel. The Parker feels more loose and smooth. And so once you got to get used to that feel of writing like that, it feels very just smooth and able to write clear and clean. But you have to be used to that almost, I almost want to say less control type of writing because it's so smooth and it's easy to write with. Even the flow of the ink feels very smooth. You can hit it at different angles, whether it's a slightly more angled angle or like a more vertical angle. It still comes out smooth all the same. Whereas the Zebra, you have to be more vertical. You have to be more controlled, but once you get used to writing like that with a certain amount of pressure, certain amount of control, certain amount of hand control, and keeping your hand a certain way, angling, all those kind of things, you get used to that. And then when you get used to that, coming back to the Parker feels a little funny, and then going back and forth. So the way you write is completely different for each of these pens. And so on first glance, me getting so used to writing with the Parker, I think that right away, the smoothness of the Parker just felt better. But once you, especially writing in this notebook here, um, it's definitely a different feel as well in terms of what you're writing on, because this kind of, something like this kind of gives way a little bit more, where you're able to press into it a little bit more. It's a little more flexible. And that, along with the feel of the Zebra, definitely felt nice, and it's different. So I'm slightly retracting the review comments that I had before. I still think they are the same in terms of what I described it as, but I don't think it's as painful to deal with once you get used to it. Because if you keep getting used to it, that's going to become your norm. And eventually you're going to become almost like a skill. You get skilled with writing with this pen to where the aspects about it that you might have seen as a negative if you're used to a Parker pen become your norm. And then now writing with the Parker pen almost becomes different to you. So I want to say that As I said before, it looks nice, and I just want to say I definitely recommend it. But just know that it's something you have to get used to when it comes to that. I still have an issue with the refills in that I'm not familiar with the refills, so it may not be an issue if you know that you're able to purchase them with ease. But I feel like the greatest resource of refills are the ones that go with Parker. From my understanding, they're a little bit more the norm or the generic, and so I don't know if you'll end up finding a hard time finding refills for the Zebra. Also, be mindful too that there are two versions of this: an older version which has plastic around this part, the retention ring for the clicker, and has a different cartridge in the inside that's more plastic, where this one is all metal for the replacement refill. But yeah, so I would say make sure you opt for this one that's all stainless steel. But yeah, I just wanted to give that update because I didn't want to give the impression like it was a bad pen or something not worth somebody purchasing, because I actually think that it is a very nice pen. And now getting used to the feeling of writing with it, I could definitely see someone getting used to this and having this as their only everyday carry pen. And being fine with that. I think there's nothing wrong with this. So I don't want to give that impression, which I gave before, probably inside the video, even though I know I gave it some positives. And I did mention about a certain writing, if you're writing it vertically, that it is a benefit. But I definitely want to make sure that, just to retract in the fact that I may have made it seem like it's not a good pen, and I did think that I had kind of alluded to that oh, go with the Jotter better than it. Now, me personally, these two are more comparable in price than this one is. This is usually goes for like a $15 maybe, where this is going to go for about like maybe 11 dollars maybe. This was about 8. I still would probably, if I had to just choose one, just off the feel of what I would just naturally like better in terms of the writing, I would probably go with the Jotter. But style wise, and if a person just felt like they wanted to go with this one, they liked it better, I don't think nothing's wrong with this. And for the price too, there's nothing wrong with this one at all. And the way it writes, once you get used to it, it's a different style of writing, but I actually like it because it's more of a um, finer tip, and the writing seems to be a lot more finer. So if you're, especially when you're writing in a small notebook like this, writing smaller and finer sometimes is better than something that feels a little more bold and a little more, the smoothness is great, but it's almost like that smoothness retracts from the sharpness of it as well, because when you write, it feels very just loose and a little more like, I don't really know how to describe it as well as just that the writing becomes a little more, I don't want to use the word sloppy, but it's just very smooth and it's easy to make things just look like that kind of fast paced writing. Let me see if I can demonstrate that on the screen to some degree. Um, so another thing too to note is that the room in between for the tip to the walls has a little bit of play. And normally that's not something that's a big deal when you're used to that writing. But it's it's smooth. It definitely is very smooth and it feels nice. Um, but like I said, there's a certain level of, I don't want to say sloppiness to that. When it's too smooth, I feel like you're not dedicating that same control, and it's a wider um it's a wider draw. Whereas, like I said, with the Zebra, I can't come at it like this. This feels doesn't feel good to me. When I write like this, I don't like it at all. From that typical normal angle, I don't like it at all, the writing of it. I don't find it appealing at all. But when I write it like this and I adjust to go straight down like that and I hold it like that, it's definitely different. And now I will say that writing on this surface is definitely different than writing on this. Keep in mind, though, in this book, on these kind of pages where you have this small line, you almost want to be more confined in, in the writing. So, excuse me. So that's definitely something that you notice, if I had to write in between some of these lines here, this feels smooth right now. This feels good right now when I'm writing like this. One thing is deal. So it's interesting because even just, I'll hold this up a little bit closer. Even once I gave myself some lines to fall into, the writing with this pen feels different because you're trying to fit within these lines. It's a little more precise. It's definitely a different feel. It feels like this is more like if I'm note taking and I'm really trying to be precise and very just, straight, thin writing, to the point, clean. I feel that this is feels really nice, especially like I said, within lines. Now, when I'm writing, um, when I'm writing with the Jotter or any of Parker's pens for that matter, I feel like it's more almost like artistic. So here I feel that the Jotter feels more like artistic, like you're jotting down notes. You're having fun with it. It's smooth. It's playful. I guess that gives you a better sense of it. It's very playful, smooth. Jot down some really quick notes. You can write them and write them. Taking your time, make it look real nice and great handwriting. Just really taking your time with it, but it still feels more like just like the namesake, like a jotter. Like I'm jotting notes down. I'm jotting things down. It's more like artistic, just free flowing. Where the zebra feels intentional because the way you hold it has to be intentional, as I just demonstrated to you when I held it at an angle. This didn't feel right to me. So I had to hold it like this. I had to like really think about it. And when you're doing that, you're so much more focused that it almost goes hand in hand with the style of the writing that you're doing. So sorry to drag this out so long. I hope that that made sense in terms of understanding how the pen feels when you write with it. And with that being said, I'm going to put a link in the description, Amazon affiliate link for you guys to purchase a jotter and a zebra. So you could choose, options of which ones you like best if you want. And I'll catch you guys in the next video.